This week, run Kali on Windows, HP patches, hacking LTE, ISC releases more patches, Red Hat guidance on distributed denial of service attacks, the largest DDoS ever had a message, and hacking Spotify. Our very own Dr. Doug White joins us for expert commentary, so stay tuned for this episode of Hack Naked News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show that brings you the security news each week. And despite popular belief, we do wear pants. It's Hack Naked News.
The breach was huge news at the time.
Linux monitoring tool.
List of affected devices. You can check out the link in the show notes.
Ars Technica is reporting that hackers have cracked the Nintendo Switch this week.
Tracking people's locations and stuff like that.
Figuring out where the military bases are by the United States of America. It's kind of interesting.
Well, and not just the United States of America, as it turns out.
DomainTools helps security analysts turn threat data into threat intelligence. They take indicators from your network, including domains and IP addresses, and connect them with nearly every active domain on the internet. Those connections drive risk assessments, help profile attackers, guide online fraud investigations, and map cyber activity to attacker infrastructure. Fortune 1000 companies, global government agencies, and leading security solutions vendors use the DomainTools platform as a critical ingredient in their threat investigations and proactive defenses. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/DomainTools. Do you have a website, an external presence, employees, an office? Any of these things can be compromised and attacked. How are you defending your assets? Have you penetration tested your public assets? Start 2018 by taking a proactive approach to securing your vulnerable areas. Black Hills Information Security has been helping companies find their weaknesses since 2008. Email consulting at blackhillsinfosec.com and see how they can help you sleep better at night.
Welcome to episode Hack Naked News, episode 164. That's what my teleprompter says. Whatever's on the teleprompter, Burgundy reads. This is episode 164 of Hack Naked News for March 6, 2018. I am, in fact, your host, Paul Asadorian, coming at you live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. I'm going to go through the news, and then Doug White and I are going to talk about some stuff related to, of course, distributed denial of service attacks. First, a really big announcement. John Strand and myself, along with the recently added Chris Breton, have continued what was offensive countermeasures to today what we're calling active countermeasures. And I have our first advertisement and a special offer for our listeners to check out some of the initial versions of our product. Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With active countermeasures, AI Hunter, we enable even junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo or purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/HNN. That's activecountermeasures.com/HNN. Active countermeasures make every analyst a hunter. That's exciting news, of course. More announcements coming up, especially related to Source Boston, InfoSec World, and Secure World Expo. We'll be at all of those events. Make sure you check them out and listen for discount codes on various shows. Maybe I'll give one out later if I'm feeling like I'm in a good mood. How about that? I should just give them all the discount codes, and then you have to figure out which one goes to which conference. Make it a game.
I like that. I think that's a good choice.
So now the security news for this week. In the news for this week, the teleprompter said that twice. It did. You saw that, right?
I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Run Kali Linux natively on Windows 10, just like that. Now you can download and install Kali Linux directly from the Microsoft App Store on Windows 10, just like any other application. You have to enable WSL, that's Windows Subsystem for Linux, to make this work. However, this version of Kali does not come pre-bundled with a whole bunch of tools. You have to install those after the fact and be cautious that your antivirus system doesn't eat them up. Of course, you can also run Kali in a VM on actual hardware, in the cloud, or as Docker containers. I guess it's nice to have some more options. There's a bug in HP's remote management tool leaving servers open to attack. Now relax, it's just a denial of service attack, which could impact your management of these servers. However, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, or HPE as they're called today, has patched a vulnerability in its remote management hardware called Integrated Lights Out 3, lovingly referred to as ILO. It's used in its popular line of HP ProLiant servers. The bug allows an attacker to launch an unauthenticated remote denial of service attack that could contribute to a crippling vulnerable data centers under some conditions. The vulnerability, CVE 2017-8987, is rated high severity with a CVSS base score of 8.6. For those of you playing CVSS base score bingo at home, that's 8.6. It was discovered by Rapid7 researchers in September. HPE publicly reported the bug on February 22nd and has made patches available, which is good because not everyone has done that this week. LTE flaws could be used for spying and spreading general chaos, according to Ars Technica. Reporting on the story, Zach Whitaker reports that researchers at Purdue University and the University of Iowa have been conducting tests of 4G LTE networks, have uncovered 10 new types of attacks. They've made this discovery as part of their evaluation of a proof of concept 4G LTE penetration testing toolset called LTE Inspector. Combined with 9 previously known attack methods that the researcher also identified as still being usable against many carrier networks, the collection of exploits could be used to track device owners, eavesdrop on text and other sensitive data, even pose as them on cellular networks, and spoof location and other data. No word if any of those vulnerabilities have been yet addressed by the major carriers or the 4G LTE protocol itself. ISC releases security advisories for DHCP and Bind, as they've done a lot in the past, of course. The Internet Systems Consortium, ISC, has released updates or workarounds that address vulnerabilities in a version of ISC's, of course, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, for those of you playing the bingo game at home on acronyms, as well as the Berkeley Internet Name Domain, or Bind, which that's what Bind stands for. A remote attacker could exploit these vulnerabilities to cause denial of service conditions. So make sure you pay attention to that. That was reported by the US CERT, as well as this next one came from the US CERT as well, as Red Hat has released security guidance for Memcache, which was the service that was used to amplify the distributed denial of service attack against GitHub. We'll get there, don't worry. Red Hat has released a security recommendation to address potential distributed denial of service attacks using Memcached. This misconfiguration could allow an attacker to exploit Memcache services as a reflection and amplification vector, causing unexpected volumes of traffic to be sent to targeted systems and networks. So if you're running Red Hat systems, which many of you probably are, you probably want to pay attention to that and get some updates out there. Speaking of the DDoS attack on GitHub, it had some interesting messages hidden in the payload. News this week, of course, was all about the 1.7 terabits a second. Is I say that right?
Terabits, yeah.
Terabits a second distributed denial of service attack against GitHub, which used an amplification method that increased traffic more than 50,000 times and was more than double the previously recorded DDoS attempts. Cybersecurity firm CyberReason reports that analysis of the data payload revealed a ransom note. The message was embedded with a line of Python code that was delivered by the compromised machines. It demanded GitHub hand over 50 XMR, that's Monero cryptocurrency. This amounts to about $15,000 US. Spotify cracks down on free users that are in fact stealing a premium service. Spotify may have 159 active users, but only 71 million of those are paid subscribers, myself being one of them. It makes sense that the company would want to maximize the number of paying customers, especially in light of the company's recent moves to go public. Now it appears Spotify is cracking down on free users that take advantage of hacked apps in order to remove the restrictions of unpaid accounts, according to the very reputable site Torrent Freak. Apparently, code in the client controls whether or not you are a paid user. Not a really smart move to validate the paying users. If you are using a hacked Spotify app that you downloaded from some nefarious website, you've likely received a message that your account may be terminated because, well, we call that theft. With that, we're going to take a short break, come back, and talk more about denial of service attacks. But first, a word from our sponsors.
ITProTV, binge-worthy learning for IT teams. Why is it binge-worthy? It's learning presented in an engaging and entertaining talk show format that beats voice-over PowerPoint snooze fests. Watch over 3,300 hours of content in their on-demand library on your desktop, on the go, or in the comfort of your own living room. ITProTV is IT training you and your team actually want to watch, which means a better return on your learning investment. Get started with ITProTV for Teams by visiting itpro.tv/security weekly and start a 7-day free trial and get 30% off standard or premium ITProTV memberships using the code SECWeekly30.
Make sure you check out our friends at ITPro.tv. I was recently playing around with the Security Onion distribution. It comes included with Wireshark. They have 2 modules, 2 training classes on Wireshark. If you want to come up to speed on network packet analysis, I thought that was a great place to start. Go to itpro.tv/securityweekly. SecWeekly30 is the discount code, and you can buy it for your entire team where you work, which you should do as well because we use them, and you should too.
Yeah, it's cheaper that way.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And just Source Boston, the code there is SW89AEE2. That's Alpha Echo Echo 2. The discount code for Secure World Expo is Security Weekly. And if you haven't registered for InfoSec World, that's coming up, where my talk will be on open source security solutions for the enterprise. The best things are free sometimes. It's a lot of fun putting this talk together. And I thought it was crazy, but people are saying that I'm onto something when I run through some of the concepts in there. So I'm excited to do that. I'm not so excited about denial of service attacks that are just unbelievably strong.
I completely agree. Have
you looked into the Memcache thing or any of the things?
I honestly haven't read all that yet. I was looking at it because it's an interesting thing, and I've always been interested in amplification because I wrote this denial of service, not released. It was just in my lab, but a long time ago that was called Mother Forker, and.
I need to have you name my talks in tools, Doug. I suck at naming stuff.
Then you get banned. But Mother
Forker
was a tool I wrote that I was using C, and I wrote this whole tool that just kept forking new distributions off and creating copies of packets.
It was a forking machine.
It was a forking machine. I mean, it was forking A, boys. But
it's forking awesome, Doug. Oh, the can of worms you just opened with that one naming.
I've been waiting to tell that story for years. Take that, FCC.
Well, your forking is relevant. So.
Yeah, and I was experimenting. This was early when we were first starting to see denial of services on actual networks, that were not just localized, and you were starting to see these things inbound. And I was trying to figure out how, what is the throughput I could crank out of a card, because at the time it was very easy to just wipe somebody out. I mean you could take a laptop and blast a router and it would get knocked off the network. But I was trying to figure out how can I take that same device, like a server or something, and fork enough jobs that were also using virtual NICs. So I was actually creating virtual NICs at the same time. And I was just really running it out to the limit of the buffer field. So how big could the buffer field possibly be? And then just going whack. It was all coming from one place. So
it was like a fork bomb, or not really?
It was kind of like a fork bomb, yeah. And it was like a fork in the eye kind of thing. But so now we're mixing our puns now.
You are, yes, very much so.
But the idea, I mean, it was completely limited by the channel. So, I mean, if you've got a 100 megabit channel, you couldn't hit with any more than that with one device. But I was just experimenting with it, trying to see how bad could Mother Forker be if I put it on 30 machines in the lab. And just that kind of amplification, which is very limited compared to the sophisticated kind of amplification you're seeing now with these sorts of things. It was just overwhelming, and it took the whole network. My little lab network, it just took the whole place down. I mean, in almost an instant. It was really interesting and cool and scary because it was code I could write, just on the fly. It wasn't complex. It didn't involve wild, elaborate exploits. It was just something I could put together there on a machine.
It reminds me of a story because speaking of when the Memcache thing came out, of course, we've had the largest distributed denial of service attack in history. That when you, the way these things work, we've seen them with NTP, now we're seeing them with Memcache. Basically, the premise is I take a small packet or small amount of data and I send it to one system, which then responds with a lot more data.
Right.
The most basic example is Echo and CareGen.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, that was like, back in the day, I was reading about computer security, and I was like, you mean to tell me that people actually ran these two services on the same network and were running them on UDP, which means I could spoof the Echo packet to CareGen, and I could get someone else to receive the data that came back.
Right.
Well, CareGen was like the alphabet and the numbers like
Yeah.
0 through 9, right? So just one packet to the CareGen service was a
And you
service
get
that
back-
ran, and you get back
Yep.
the whole alphabet, so I could actually spoof
You get
that.
like 35 bytes.
You could point Echo, because Echo would just echo back to you whatever it was. So there was like for
And then-
years in Linux systems till, I don't know what they did with those services, eventually just phased them out. I don't see Echo and CareGen services running on modern networks today as much, but it was like a troubleshooting. What was the purpose of those services other than
They were
literally
literally like troubleshooting test services. So
Yeah.
CareGen was a way that you could see that your interpreter was getting back bytes, and the
Yep.
bytes were in the order they were supposed to be. So you get back A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you could read that as it came into the buffers. So it was a way you could use it for testing how your throughput worked. You could use it for your buffering testing. Programmers used it all the time to just test things like that when they started
Right.
writing network-enabled code. So it was a really handy service. It's kind of like a ping.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a ping is the same kind of thing. It's just I send you something and you send me something back. So it's not easy to amplify a ping the same way, but CareGen was with an echo.
Right.
But you could do it with pings too. I mean, you can do a ping that responds to a ping that responds to a ping. So you can modify some code, and all of a sudden, when you get an ICMP packet, you immediately respond.
What was the thing that Joff was talking about that I did back in the day? Origin forwarding.
I don't know. I don't remember.
There's a thing that basically, if I have a subnet and it goes through a router, like only traffic from that subnet should ever be the originating traffic, right?
Mhm.
So I can't spoof someone else's source address from my own network.
Okay.
What is that? There's a name for that. He said on the show, and now it escapes me.
I haven't watched the show. I have a class on Thursday night now, so I haven't watched the show yet.
So basically, that's what we talked about as a mitigation in a lot of networks to prevent that type of spoofing from happening. I mean, these are old concepts.
Yeah.
So you kind of wonder how these massive DDoS attacks are happening on the internet today. I guess a lot of people aren't doing their due diligence, or some of that due diligence isn't applying to the way we've deployed much of the infrastructure on the internet today.
Well, you either have to zombie it or you have to amplify it. I mean, all devices are going to be able to resist any kind of an attack because they're just robust enough to take, like my old mother forker approach is not going to work. My Cisco router or whatever kind of router I've got sitting there, or even my switches, they can soak that up no problem. I mean, but there was a time when they couldn't. So now my only approach to that would be mother forker would have to be zombified or botnetted so that it spreads or wormed or however I'm going to spread it. So I've got 2,000 machines that are going to simultaneously run that mini amplification kind of thing, or you have to find a way to amplify it in some kind of public environment, which is what I guess they're doing with Memcache D.
If you did that for GitHub, though, would you ask for more than $15,000?
I would definitely ask for more than if I could generate 1.5 terabits of attack, I would definitely ask for 15,000 plus.
Right. Like, why wouldn't you ask for more? I thought that was kind of weird.
I guess maybe it's like Dr. Evil, and they're going $1 million, and then everybody goes, "Okay, here you go."
There you go.
So maybe they're just playing it low. They're like, they'll pay if we only ask for 15,000. If we ask GitHub for 15 million, they'll go, "Come on."
Right.
But you ask for 15,000, you get it. Maybe some 12-year-old kids, and they just want to buy a bunch of game consoles or something.
Could be.
Or it could be people attacking from a country where they're like, $15,000 here is like, I can buy the rest of the country.
That's true. So I was reading or listening to someone that was talking about, I think it was Bruce Sussman that came on the show, was talking about the average salary in India being like so much, I don't know.
Lower.
I want to say it's $1 a day, but it's not
It's
really
low,
$1.
yeah.
But let's just, for shits and giggles, it's $1 a day, right? if you could commit cybercrime that would get you $2 or $3 or $4 a day, you're doubling your income. And that's the situation you're just describing is, well, if I can help pull off this attack, if I get,
I mean,
if I double my
$15,000 a lot of money some places. So if you had $15,000 untrackable, you've got a lot of cash. So there's a lot of incentive to go low because now you're into this the theory of ransom behavior.
Right.
It's like, what will they pay? And if you ask for so much money that they can't afford to pay it, they go, well, you'll just have to keep cutting our arms and legs off because I don't have any cash.
Yeah, it's interesting when the Mirai botnet came out and those DDoS attacks ensued. Everyone said we're going to see it again. And now this next one has used the Memcache service, and everyone's like, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
The entire world is going to end. What's your thought on, repeat?
We've never seen DDoS become pernicious enough to persist across time. It seems as if these are all sort of, it's easy enough to build robust equipment that can resist DDoS even at this kind of outrageous level.
Yeah, I haven't read as to how they combated it.
And I mean, once it's known, it's easy enough to watch for, and then you can filter it out. And and the problem with these zombified attacks and these spread amplified attacks or whatever you want to call them is that it relies on many computers simultaneously amplifying this attack. So the minute it starts getting squashed, and either it's being blocked by egress filtering in networks, it's being blocked by devices, it's being blocked by firewalls, it's being blocked by the backbone, the number of possible machines running it, even if there's lots of them infected, suddenly starts to drop. And as those numbers start dropping out, the thing just becomes completely ineffective, and then it's just it's a blow off, and it's just known at that point.
Certainly makes for interesting things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, these are cool attacks. If you like reading about attacks and you like looking at code, I like them because they're very innovative. And these are always what I call the essence of pure hacking, which is thinking outside the box and exploiting known things. So this is just, that's why I always liked that kind of attack so much, because it was just somebody taking a service that existed, using it in a bad way, and exploiting that weakness rather than something that was so sophisticated and so deep dive that like Spectre and Meltdown, all these things are very, very sophisticated kind of attacks, which are cool too, but these are just very understandable, and people can get it, and you can explain it to people and a general audience even, and say, this is how that worked. The ping of death just was like, what if I sent you an extra bit? And it crashed everything on the internet back in '99. I mean, all of our networks stopped working because somebody put the wrong payload in a data packet, and it was like a denial of service to end all denial of services, but it only worked for a little while.
There was some that was for Windows too, right? The ping of death attack was was Windows. There's a couple other for Windows that caused instant blue screens.
Yeah,
because I used to also mess around with, actually back in the day when I was studying things like Echo and Cargen, studying for my initial security certifications, I discovered, my friend Bob told me about these attacks that he used to prank.
It's always that guy Bob.
That guy Bob used to prank the security guard at the place where they worked with the blue screen of death attack. And it worked fantastic.
Yeah,
I think we've largely cleaned up a lot of those easier denial of service attacks. And when we look at something like this, it's that's why it's headline news, because we've cleaned up, like we just mentioned in the beginning of this segment, Echo and Cargen, largely, you don't see them on networks today.
I mean, anything
it's fun if there is.
Yeah, and anything it's like an ACK flood like this, which is essentially that's another amplification of a zombie is just an ACK flood coming back to you. So if
ACK flood,
if
sure.
I can generate enough ACKs coming back, or even fins or anything.
Sin flood was a
Sin flood's like a forward-facing, but I'm thinking about a zombie
flood.
Like
reflection. The ACK goes back.
I'm going to reflect the ACK against you, and if I can modify that ACK some way so it's malformed or it's oversized or I can cause some sort of trigger, I just created an amplified zombie attack that's going to hit your network with ACK packets that are reflected, so they're not traceable to me, and it's very pernicious, and that means that it's hard to find anybody out there doing it. It just happens, and if you can spread it with a botnet or whatever, it becomes a big problem. And you can ransomware GitHub for $15,000.
Yeah, those are some really motherfuckers that did that. Doug White, thank you very much for appearing on Hack Naked News. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching.